Alright guys, welcome back. This is actually our first year on this property, although I did put in the garden last year as we were doing everything else, and finally got moved out of the property in September. But again, I was doing three things last year at the same time: having animals and providing a place for them to live, and really building as we went. You know, they would run out of grass in one pasture and I'd quickly put up some new fences, get them moving somewhere else, preparing for us to live on the property, pulling the mobile home on, working on that, and then also building all these raised beds and all this gardening. So this is my first year where I can kind of actually not relax, because I don't really do that, but plan and try things and see things. And in our time down here in Arkansas, we haven't really ever done some of the experiments I want to do. I want to find which peas work best for us. So this year I've got ones like Wando, Early Perfection, Alaska, Oregon Giant, a couple different ones that I all plan on trying this year. This is going to be my row of Alaska ones. I don't know if you guys saw when I made those signs last time. I'll link the video if you didn't. But I'm just going to run one. These guys get about 2.5 feet tall, 55 days to harvest. So there's something I can plant now in mid-February, and hopefully, February, March, April, partway through April, we should be eating these. And then afterwards, I'll plant some different stuff here. I'm thinking maybe this may be a spot for summer squash. We'll see. I'm actually going to try to plant out a lot of this. I'll see if I get time to or not. But these plants are short, so they don't need a lot of support. But I still am going to actually run 2 T-posts and run some wires. So I've got some snips, some T-posts, a fence pounder, some wire that I got. And then for planting peas, one thing that I really enjoy is using a scythe. These are great for getting good depth for the seeds, especially if you're low. If I was up high, and didn't want to bend over, I'd use a hollow pipe, and you stab the pipe down in the thing, you drop your seed in the end, and then you move on to the next one. Very, smart, wise way to do it to prevent you from bending over the whole time. I don't mind being down here on this level, but I think that my raised beds, yeah, that's the ground here. It doesn't really, you got to force it in somewhere, and we're kind of in the rainy season too, so it's still pretty hard ground underneath. But the raised beds, it's soft. I can usually dig my hand in there pretty well, so should be pretty easy. But one thing I like to do too is to give my seeds sometimes a soak, or even get them sprouting first. We are kind of in the rainy season, so they should be saturated and moist. I shouldn't really have to water them. But just to make sure, I gave these guys a soak for a couple hours, so they swelled up. They were like this tall before, but they swelled up to here. And we're just going to put these T-posts in, run up our wires, and then drop these seeds in, and we'll see what happens. So a couple things that you're going to see as I work on this project is I'm going to angle my T-posts out slightly. That's because I do want the wire to be slightly taut, and I'm probably going to only run one small row and one slightly up from there. If they kind of sprawl out after that and fall on themselves, it doesn't really matter. I don't really think they're going to hit 3 feet in height or so. But I'll kind of put the T-posts out, string the wire across, and then get to planting my seeds. So a couple things you may have noticed there. The first is that I put my wire up first. If I've got some sort of a trellis or some sort of a support system, like a strung wire between some T-posts, it's easier for me to put this up first, and then I can look directly where I want my seeds to be, rather than trying to run a straight line of seeds, and I could mark it out and trough it too. But it's just easier for me to do that first. Now if I was, you notice, planting them about 1 inch to 2 inches apart. Eventually I want the plants to be about 2 inches apart, but you plant them a little bit more frequently than that, or drop some into 2 seeds in some holes. So I may thin them a little bit depending on how things go too. And I could cut just a trough, you know, from T-post to T-post, plant all the seeds first, then string this stuff up so it's not my way. But by doing that, I'm disturbing the soil more if I run a whole trough. And I'm not so concerned, you know, about disturbing the soil as far as like, oh, I want this to be 100% no-till where I don't disturb anything. But the problem is that this is all woods. So there are these little creatures that sometimes I refer to as the idiots of the woods. People usually call them squirrels. But they will come out and dig up everything. You know, we used to have tulips back in Wisconsin, and a tulip would bloom, and they'd come over and shred the thing and run to the next one. You know, they wouldn't do anything with it. Or they'd dig up a bulb and just leave it there. Tulip petals are edible. You know, I like eating them. They wouldn't even eat them. They'd just shred them and destroy them. So last year I was having a lot of problems with them disturbing things. I was fighting them for a while, trying to scare them away and stuff like that. So here, a couple things. You can see my beds are mulched. I got some straw down on top of everything. I do have some winter rye just kind of popping through a little bit. There's some straw seeds that are popping through and some little Austrian winter peas as well. But this is a cover to prevent weed seeds from getting in and down into my soil. So you can see I force my finger down through it and drop the seeds below. They'll be able to pop up through here, and I'll continue to add more organic material to the top of this, and this will just eventually build more soil. I'll be putting on my different fish emulsion and stinging nettle tea and adding compost to the top, adding rabbit manure to the top, and it'll continue to build up and make a richer soil for us. But by just kind of poking the hole and a couple things happen. One, I'm not disturbing the soil very much, so it's not as obvious to the squirrels. Two, I'm getting it down there beneath this barrier so they can actually take root. The fact I've already saturated them and that the ground is wet is hopefully going to be good. Peas, a lot of people sow, you know, maybe 2 to 4 weeks before your last frost date. We're at mid-February right now. Our last frost date in this area on average is usually between maybe March 1st and 10th or so. So I'm about 2 weeks ahead of time. I could have planted the kale a little bit ago and some of the other things I'm going to be getting into, but it's time for me to just start getting things in. Start going, and then, you know, like I said, by mid-April on some of this I should be able to start reaping a harvest. Hopefully this works out well, and we'll see what happens. But that was my project for a day. I got a little bit more to go. It's just daylight starting to fade, so I wanted to wrap the video up. But oh, you guys growing anything this year already yet? Back in Wisconsin I wouldn't put things outside yet because they just had the most snow in like almost 100 years or more. For a February, record-breaking. My dad said they got like 15 inches, so obviously I wouldn't be doing this up there, and it's still kind of a whole mental adjustment. But where are you guys at in the world? What are you growing? What are you waiting for? What are you starting inside? I've got tons of stuff started inside, but I'm happy to start putting things in the soil here, and I really look forward. This garden is so brown right now, and I saw some footage of it from last year, and I can't wait to see it as it progresses this year, but just to see it lush and green and vibrant and alive and nutritious and delicious and feeding our families. So soon enough, guys. Papa out.
As always, I'm Papa Pepper, and I'd like to remind you, don't post for free. If you'd like to be part of a revolution in social media, an economic power to the people where users can actually blog for cryptocurrency, then I'd recommend that you check out steemit.com and join the revolution. Papa out.